What's going on, everybody? I want to start this video off by letting you in on a few things, and then we'll get to the main topic, which is Chief versus Fireball in the season opener of season 11 Street Outlaws, and everything that happened, all the new stuff, and a little bit more on my last video, which was where I said that Monza wrecks his car. First thing I want to tell you about is the Project C5. I did take it to the track, and I have a video that's going to come out on that in a couple of days. I want to get a little more footage, and then I will edit and put it out there and let you know, a little bit about what's going on, what's happened, everything about that. Before I even start this video, I do want to touch on the last video I made, which was talking about Monza flipping his car. I had a lot of people that said that was Shane that wrecked, it wasn't Monza, and it shows two crashes in that little clip that I'm talking about. One of them, it shows the cars coming towards you, and it shows Shane's left rear lose traction and him go across the curb and run over a hay bale and run off. That's not the wreck I'm talking about. I'm talking about the one where it's him and Chuck racing, and they cross the finish line, the car goes hard right. It is not footage we have seen. You can see stuff in the background, you can see a vehicle, you can see a stop sign, you can see several things that prove that it is not anything we have seen so far, and then you see the car flipping. And they could have took two different videos, compiled them together, and made me believe that, but if they did, it shows the car sliding sideways. On the passenger side, it has a GoPro, and that is Monza's exhaust. That is the only thing I went off of on that clip, but there is also an in-car camera of the car flipping, and that is where I'm getting most of my information from as far as that goes. I have never claimed to know it all, know any of them personally, or anything. This channel started out as just a regular automotive channel and morphed into me talking about Street Outlaws, and which is fine. I enjoy it, I study it, I feel as if I know a good bit about it, and by process of elimination plus based on facts, which you can find in the show if you know where to look, I truly feel like it is Monza who flipped a car. I've had a million subscribers, or people who just watched the video said that it wasn't him. People telling me to live in the 405 and hadn't heard about it. People saying it's Shane. People saying it was a Camaro, the Godfather, wrecking at Cash Days. I know for a fact it's not Shane. I know it wasn't the Godfather. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, hey, I'm wrong. I have never claimed to know it all. The sticker's there, the dash is there, same helmet, same driving suit, down to zip ties being in certain places inside the roll cage. I am 99% sure that it is Monza. I would not make a video and put false information out there intentionally for views. It is what it is, and I'm going to put out what I feel like is credible information, or if it's not credible and it is my opinion, I will say so. Alright, with that being out of the way, let's talk about Chief versus Ryan, the list shakeup, and let's kick it off right here. Alright, let's start this part of the video off, and let's just start at the beginning of the episode. They're all gathered around the table at Farm Truck and Asian's firehouse, and they're talking about bringing back the old ways of the list. And last season they had, time limits, and, just they changed a bunch of stuff as far as, the way you could, not race, and the way you had to race, and just a bunch of different things, and they're supposedly bringing back everything that we all love about the show. And they all talked about the camaraderie and all that, and that contradicts a lot of things that they have always said about not liking each other. They was more worried about making appearances and stuff like that versus keeping the show going. The show is what got them to be able to make the appearances, so that seems like that should always be number one to them. But I do feel like they have come back to their roots and realized that that is what gave them the fame and the right to even do any of this, and I feel like that they truly do want to bring it back to the show, and I do feel like Street Outlaws will become a better show to watch because of this. The name of the show is the Doc Amendment, and I can tell you this, I can guarantee by next week there will be a problem with Doc as far as the reasons for not racing. He does cock block the list a lot. Talk about Doc for a second, something he done on the show, and something that I think is the coolest thing that he has ever done in the history of Street Outlaws, and that is his steering wheel was not completely lashed. And if you know anything about, that type steering wheel, that quick connect steering wheel, you pull back on it, slide it over, and it's got some grooves and some teeth that it sets in and clamps, and it had not slid all the way up on there to lock. Well, when he let go of the button and the car, launched, when he pulled back in the seat, he pulled the steering wheel off. Well, that led to a few issues. Number one, he has no steering. The only thing there is a steering column sticking out of the shaft, which I have had the luxury of having to drive something like that before, and let me tell you, it is not easy. I don't see how it was even possible for him to not let out of the gas, and that was probably the coolest thing Doc has ever done by staying in it. The second problem that comes from that is he has a nitrous car with buttons on the steering wheel, which means he had no buttons to feed that extra nitrous into that car, and he didn't lose but by a car length or two, which is very respectable considering what has just happened. And me personally, that was the coolest thing that Doc has ever done. The next thing I want to talk about, and that would be Dominator. For the past several seasons, about since he went twin turbo, that car has fell off. And I have also talked about this several times in different videos, and he supposedly does a lot of this on his own, builds his transmissions, his rear ends, his motor, all this stuff. And at that caliber of cars, you gotta have help as far as doing certain things, and I don't know if he got that help or he learned it or what, but he was on point the other night. He's number 5, and that's the first time he's been in the top 5 in, I know, 5 seasons. That car was strolling. It was moving. I was very, very proud of him. He got rid of that really ugly hood, and it's got a, decent looking hood on the car. To me, the entire car just looked 10 times better. He made some great passes. He was competitive, and I really hope that he can keep that car in the top 5 or 6, because I feel like he truly deserves it by him doing all this stuff himself versus just paying somebody and sitting in a seat and letting go of a button. I hope to see him stay in the top 5. The next thing I want to talk about is the new Murder Nova versus Ryan Martin in the Fireball, and that was the first race of the evening. They went into the race with Ryan being number 1 and Sean being 10, and they left, Sean being 10, and they'll see who's number 1 next week. I do feel like Murder Nova is as fast or faster than the Fireball once he gets a hold on things. And when you have that many cars that is that close, it all depends on whose night it is, to be honest. He lost by a length or two, and when you're going that fast, a length or two is the blink of an eye. And like they've always said, you get in where you fit in, and I do feel like he fits in the top 2 or 3, and I feel like that is where we will see him headed very fast. All right, the next thing I want to talk about, and that would be the race with Daddy Dave versus Fireball, and it would have been in the second round. What I want to talk about is the interview that Dave done before the race, and he was talking about how good of a racer, how good of a car, and all that Fireball is. The reason I want to talk about it, I want to backtrack to a season or 2 ago when Ryan Martin come on the list. The same interview Daddy Dave done before the race, he was talking about how much he didn't like Ryan, he didn't deserve to be there, he was not a OG 405, just all these different reasons why he shouldn't be there. And then with a season or 2 under his belt, now he's completely changed his tune and says that he is deserving to be in the top spot. I don't know if Ryan Martin proved himself to Dave by saying that, or Dave just realizes that he can outrun that car. I feel like Daddy Dave has become a faster and better racer than he was, or his car has anyhow, and I feel like he has ate his words on what he said about Ryan Martin to begin with. And all that behind us, let's talk about the main topic of this video, and that is Chief versus Ryan. Was supposed to have been the final race of the night, for number 1, for 10 grand, for all that, and Chief taking the bye run. My opinion, I feel like Chief was not trying to hurt the list. I feel like he was not playing games. I feel like he done what he had to do to try to win that race. And I feel like it had more to do with the 10 grand than it did the number one spot. And the reason for that is he could call Ryan out for next week for the number one spot, but he can't get that 10 grand next week. You know, I do also feel like if it was, you know, true street racing type things, if they had to leave right then at 3 o'clock to go, you know, to be off by curfew or whatever, they could have rolled to another spot and raced for that 10 grand. Yes, it wouldn't have been on camera and it wouldn't have been as good for the show and all that, but, you know, that is my opinion. I, you know, have seen several people saying that, and that is the way that I feel. But I do not feel like he just throwed the race because he had a hurt car. You know, the whole night he had problems with his car starting and, you know, electrical issues and firing issues and that type of thing. So I really don't blame him for taking the buy run to see if his car was going to run right. Yes, it run straight, run, you know, fast and all that, and he might have could have been competition for Ryan, but I would have done the same thing, and I don't blame him one bit. I don't think he was trying to hurt anybody or do anything malicious or anything like that. I feel like he was awarded that buy run by the chip he drew, so he should have been, without any question, given the buy run, and it is what it is. You know, there'll always be next week. It can always be finished, and it did leave something for everyone to hold on to watch next week's episode. You can see producers or somebody that looks like not a street racer walking around saying, you know, doing that number right there, like cut it off, you know, we're not losing this spot and that sort of thing. But unless there was some sort of law enforcement there, you know, enforcing this 3 o'clock rule, I feel like they could have got it done. It could be all in production and the reality TV side of the show, forcing them to do that to, you know, like I said, leave you hanging on for next week. But, you know, we'll find out next week who's number one. As far as the clip goes, it looks like Ryan Martin got him. And, you know, we'll just have to wait and see. It ain't but a couple of days. We'll find out, and there'll be a new video talking about it. Ryan Martin is fast. The Fireball Camaro is the fastest car on the list to date. And I do feel like he deserves the number one spot, and he's going to hang on to it. You know, there may be a night that something happens and somebody knocks him off his game or something happens to the car or whatever, but that car is consistent. Very few times have you ever seen him have any problems. He is the most consistent, you know, racer, the most consistent car, you know, brings his car ready to race every race night where a lot of the guys don't, and that is why he is in the number one spot. That is why he deserves that number one spot, and I feel like he is going to stay in that number one spot. And if he does get kicked out of it, it is something that happened, or, you know, he's due for a problem to happen on race night, and it will happen eventually. But this video has been pretty long, and I'm going to end it right here. As always, the email address is across the screen. Also, my P.O. box is on the screen. Anything you want me to know, anything you need me to know, anything you want me to say, you know, I'm going to do a Q&A before long, so shoot your questions to that email address. That way we are sure that I get them, where if they are mixed in the comments, I may not get them. If anything you want me to have or promote on this channel, send it to that P.O. box, and we will do what we got to do to get it on the channel. All I ask is if you need something promoted, you let me know information about it, because if I just get a product that I know nothing about, it's hard to promote it that way. I look forward to hearing what everything you have to say on what I had to say about Monza, about Chief, about Dominator, about Doc, about everything that I talked about in this episode. I'm looking forward to what you have to say about it. So drop it in the comments. Do whatever you got to do. As always, thanks for watching. Godspeed, and I will see you in the next video.